Groww has launched Nifty Total Market Index fund. So we all must be thinking, Array, then what is this total market index? How is this different from BSE 500 or NSE 500? BSE 500 or NSE 500 as an index covers only large cap, mid cap, small cap. Whereas when we talk about total market index, we are also talking about micro cap as well in the addition, right? So my argument to micro cap, having a micro cap, like let's say, or having a small cap in your portfolio is more like we are in the World Cup fever right now. Yesterday, India had a wonderful match. Okay. During 2011 World Cup, who is that one player whom do you think of when we say India won the World Cup? Who contributed the most? Can you name one player? Okay. Mehul is saying Yuvraj. Gurpinder is saying Yuvraj. Okay. Yeah, of course. I mean, the kind of innings what Yuvraj played is remarkable with all the disease what he had in him. I think he probably delivered the best, Ashutosh is saying the entire team. Nagaraj is saying Yuvraj and Dhoni. Sibal is saying Gautam Gambhir. Okay, Gambhir and Dhoni. I think Dhoni became an icon with that one last ball six, right? Yeah, we always remember those incidents in pockets. We say that last ball six is the one which actually contributed, right? Now, but essentially, I think Rajkumar is saying Zahir, but I think I'm more tilted towards saying all members of the team. I think the entire team contributed, right? I mean, when you really look at 2011 team, they're the perfect example of a well-balanced portfolio. We had Sachin Tendulkar, Virender Sehwag, Gautam Gambhir, you name it, like let's say the best of stalwarts, Yuvraj Singh and all. We had emerging players. We had emerging players like Suresh Raina, Mahendra Singh Dhoni had established, but he was not a large cap. He was still a mid cap there. But there was still some dark horses, like let's say Virat Kohli was a dark horse. So you cannot attribute all the success to one person. It is always the team effort. Okay. You need to have well-established players who can bring in that stability. You need those emerging stars who can actually, that add that alpha, who can generate that alpha. And then those dark horses, if they tend to perform just in that one game, that can actually change the, like let's say outlook, or that can change the result for us. So if you really look at the allocation of Nifty Total Market Index, a very interesting allocation, close to 72% is exposed towards large cap, that is Nifty 100. Okay, here I'm talking about Nifty Total Market Index. It's an index. If you look at the index composition, 72% is towards large cap, about 16 is towards mid cap. So if you add large and mid cap, we are talking about 88% allocation to large and mid cap. Close to 9% in small cap and about 3% in micro cap. So we are talking about 12% exposure to small and micro cap. Consists of 750 stocks. That is rank number 1 to 750. That's how total market index or an index basket has been created, right? Some of the critical ratios are available in front of you, so you can always look at this. Now, the debate here is, why should you be looking at a total market index, right? When you look at a total market index, what kind of coverage it would have in terms of the market capitalization? Anyone, you want to take a guess? Let's say Nifty 50 covers close to 50% of the market capitalization. How about total market index? What percentage does it cover? Anyone? Any guess? What percentage does okay, Rajkumar is saying 98%. Anyone else? What's your take? Tejas is saying 50. Because there are close to 5,000 odd stocks in Bombay Stock Exchange, 2,000 odd companies in National Stock Exchange. The question is, when you consider, let's say, total market index, that is top 750 companies, what percentage do we cover in terms of market capitalization? 96 to 98, 82, 95 to 99. Okay, that's nice. Most of your answers are very close to this one. Nagaraj, I think this is probably the first time your answer is slightly away from the correct answer. I'm really sorry. Rest all other answers are really there. We are talking about Nifty 50 is about 49% coverage of the entire market capitalization. If you look at total market index, we're talking about 96% coverage, right? So that means if you are investing in this particular index, you are investing in 96% of the market capitalization of India. That means you are covering the entire India story per se, right? So remember, you're still investing 72% in large cap and about 88% in large and mid cap put together or combined together, right? Now, why should we invest in India portfolio? I think all of you would have heard of these stories, and then every presentation talks about why India, why should we invest in India? Not just every presentation, I'm sure even when you look outside with the way people talking about India, I think we are probably at the best place, right? Isn't it? Now, there was a very interesting story or the presentation I heard. I'm sure you guys would have heard of Mr. Ridhim Desai. Mr. Ridhim Desai of Morgan Stanley. He heads Morgan Stanley India. Recently, he gave a speech under like let's say a title called as Reasonomics. Why India as a story is evolving and evolving so well, and why are we in this particular formidable pace? Right now, for an economy to do well, or for a country to do well, there are multiple facets. We are talking about, like, let's say, geopolitical aspects, social aspects, or economical aspects, right? These three aspects. At any given point of time, for a country, one thing or the other thing is firing or doing well, because of which the country tends to do well. But at least as per him, I'm sure we all tend to agree with this particular statement. We are at the Triveni Sangam. That means all these three things are in our favor, right? I mean, be it the geopolitical factors where the country is positioned, or in the socio-economic factors, or even for that matter, in the economic factor. Right? I mean, we all know the story, right? Socio-economic factor, right from direct benefit scheme to the number of people holding in, the bank accounts, and then how many people have come to the fold of financial services industry, female feticide, the drop in female feticide. I mean, all these factors are really contributing, right? Now, the next one is from the geopolitical side. I mean, be it India becoming the new destination for manufacturing, or all the focus and the attention given towards manufacturing and all that, right? I mean, things are really working out well for India. That's why um, the experts are very confident about India becoming the third largest economy in the world in the next 5 years or so. Then Bombay Stock Exchange, the overall market cap should grow towards 10 trillion. And recently, there is another research, if you get a hand of it, it's a public domain research. You all can actually download it and see. CRISIL has brought out a very interesting report. As per that report, it says that number of people who are earning the income between 2 lakhs to 10 lakhs, okay, the so-called Indian middle class, is expected to grow by 50% in the next 5 years. Okay, that's a very big jump. And the second one is the so-called the upper middle class. We are talking about somebody who's earning 10 lakhs and above. That number is expected to grow up almost by 3 times. So that means India is growing by the virtue of India growing. It is not just India growing, even people, we are also growing. More money in the hands, more disposable income in the hands, and then yet more savings also in the hand. So from that point of view, I think it makes sense for us to be part of India as a whole story, not as a selected part story, right? I'm not saying when I say India growth story, it is not just big companies, right? It's the small companies, medium-sized companies, the SMEs, everybody's growing. So that's where it makes sense for us to be part of all the 4 categories. So how is the total market index as a category performed, right? I mean, if you really look at the returns, despite of large cap heavy particular portfolio, the performance between, I would say, Nifty 50 versus total market index, if you see, across all time periods, when you look at the point-to-point returns, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, multiple point-to-point returns, Nifty total market index has outperformed Nifty 50. So that means what? By adding some bit of mid, small, and micro cap to your portfolio, You're not taken a very big risk. You've only taken a small deviation. Okay, you've generated that extra return here. So how much excess return we have generated over 15 years? We are talking about 1.5% CAGR. But in the near term, the returns differential is much bigger, purely because in the last couple of years, small cap and micro cap as a category has done much better than mid and large cap. But remember, all the allocation, what I told you in that particular index, is historical weightage. But as the country is evolving, as the country, number of companies growing bigger and bigger in the mid cap space and small cap space and micro cap space, these weightages are also expected to change. Just look at it. I mean, look at the amount of flow the small cap funds have received in the last couple of months. I mean, that means there are more and more companies are being discovered, the more and more companies are being invested, and then they're also being part of the regular Indian economic equity market transactions. So that means I think the growth is here for the other categories of companies as well. The weightage is here to change. So that means the differential could be this or could be slightly better as well in the years to come. But the next question, what we should answer is, have we generated higher returns by taking much higher risk? Has the risk of the portfolio increased? So here, what we have done, we have, like say we have considered the Sharpe ratio of total market index versus Nifty 50 index, right? Now, what does Sharpe ratio tells you? I'm sure most of you would be aware. Sharpe ratio tells you risk adjusted return. I think Mr. Nagaraj pointed out this particular point long time back. It gives you risk adjusted returns. What do you mean by risk adjusted returns? I always give this example to my, let's say investor sessions. During that, I give this example. Bangalore to Mysore distance. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this particular geography, but I'm just giving you an example. Two cities, Bangalore and Mysore. 140 kilometers is the distance, and we have a nice, beautiful expressway now, right? So people are saying that we are reaching Mysore in about 1.5 hours to 2 hours. Let's say 2 hours time. Let us say I told you that I reached Mysore in 55 minutes. Right? Let's say I didn't break any law, but I'm just telling you a hypothetical situation. Right? I reached Mysore in 55 minutes. The average or the normal time taken is 90 minutes, but here I'm saying I reached in 55 minutes. What is the first question you would like to ask me in this case? The first question you would like to ask me is, probably you'll ask me at what speed I drove my car, right? Then I'll say, look, I drove at about 180 kilometers per hour. Then you will say that, look, you would have reached safely this time, but I may not be able to reach safely every time. Even though there is a good amount of time I have saved, but in order to save that time, the amount of risk I've taken is significantly high, right? So that means what we are trying to refer? How much risk I'm taking to generate how much excess return. That's what Sharpe ratio talks about. Okay, so essentially, a higher Sharpe ratio is always considered to be better, simply because for every 1 unit of risk you're taking, how much excess return has been generated. And interestingly, at all time periods, if you see the point-to-point time periods, total market index has a better Sharpe ratio compared to Nifty 50. That means by investing balanced 28% in mid cap, small cap, and micro cap category, even though a risk element of the portfolio has increased, because of the better returns, the risk adjusted returns looks much better compared to Nifty 50. Okay, so that means when somebody invests in a fund like say Flexi Cap fund or a total market index fund, you're essentially not really increasing, or let's say increasing risk compared to a large cap fund or a large cap index fund. You are pretty much in the similar territory, right? So that with a potential to generate a little extra return. So that's how you should be looking at. How is the scenario in developed markets? The Vanguard AMC is one of the biggest AMCs per se, if you see. They have total stock market index in that particular market, in US market. That particular fund's AUM is about $1.4 trillion. Right? That means that makes the fund is one of the most accepted fund or the most accepted index in US market. Right? So that's where Groww is also headed, launching India's first total market index fund. So this is a complete passive fund. This is not an active fund. So that means this fund will exactly replicate total market index. That means you will have 750 stocks in this particular portfolio. Okay. Investment strategy, passive strategy, like I mentioned, completely apes the Nifty total market index. That's how the, like let's say fund is built for. It's suitable for investors who are looking for long-term capital appreciation. Somebody who says, I want to achieve my financial goals, I want to reduce my risk. All these essential elements are always taken care here. Managed by Mr. Anupam Tiwari, comes with 18 years experience in the mutual fund industry. He's worked with multiple asset management companies. His recent most experience has been with Axis AMC, right? So after Axis, he is joined in Groww AMC, and he heads the equity vertical. So he's the fund manager for this particular fund, right? That's what briefly I wanted to cover about the fund, and more than the fund, how do you build the overall equity portfolio? See, lot of the things what I told or what we discuss right now are fairly simple. There is no rocket science, nothing difficult as a concept here. But what I personally feel is simple things are the most difficult elements to follow, right? I mean, how do we lead a good, healthy life, right? Eat healthy, exercise regularly, sleep on time, right? Very simple three formulas. You go to anywhere across the world, this is what we say. But how easy to follow? How many of us follow all the three, right? It's very, very difficult. Staying true to a diversified portfolio in all markets is also a very simple thing to follow. But when we give in to emotions, markets are doing really well, then we shift more towards sectoral funds, small cap funds. Markets are doing bad, then I move towards some other category. So staying true to those emotions, I think, is the key. Build a good equity portfolio, stay invested for long term, help your clients achieve their financial goals. In the whole journey or virtue of it, you also achieve your financial goals in there. Thanks everyone for joining in. You've been a lovely audience. I wish all of you very good luck. Thank you.